We're joined by Wisconsin Republican Governor Scott Walker. Nice to have you with us at Newsmax again, sir.
Good to talk to you again.
Okay. President of the National Education Association says Republican efforts to rein in the power of unions has produced a middle-class backlash nationwide that could cost you and other GOP politicians their jobs. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's quite the contrary. I think for decades the middle class has been paying for the excess of government. And finally what you see in Wisconsin and other states is we're standing up, we're respecting the hard work that middle class taxpayers make every day and the hard taxes they provide for their government. We're saying we want to spend it better. We want to make sure that dollars they spend on education actually go for the kids in the classroom and not for all the hierarchy that's a part of the system of the past.
A petition drive to recall you has already drawn over 100,000 votes. Does that concern you?
Well, we treat it seriously. I mean, anytime you saw earlier this summer, the national big government union bosses in total, along with other groups, spent about $44 million on the 6 state Senate recall elections and the others that were going on in Wisconsin. And so if they could spend that kind of money, put that in context, I spent $13 million running for governor, over $40 million on these Senate elections. You got to take it seriously, but I view it as an opportunity. I'm an optimist. I think it's a great chance to remind the people of the state of Wisconsin that our reforms are working and that we've got a plan and a positive outlook for the future of Wisconsin.
Do union tactics intimidate Republican governors?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, again, we recognize that we were elected by the people. In my case, the majority of people in Wisconsin elected me to do exactly what I said I'd do. I said I'd balance the budget. I'd do it without raising taxes. I'd do it without using tricks or gimmicks that were used in the past. And I'd still make sure that we protected seniors and needy families and children and ultimately do things like putting more money in the classroom. We did all those things. And so a handful of folks want to stand up and cry foul, but it's really about they want to continue to take money out of the pockets of workers without their permission. And so in the end, it's not only about keeping my promises, it's about us standing up to protect workers in the state of Wisconsin as well.
Wisconsin Democrats say you gave yourself a $7,300 pay raise while the pay of other state workers remains frozen. Now that, of course, is not accurate. In fact, the previous governor, Democrat Jim Doyle, proposed that increase, and it was approved by state lawmakers in 2008. Why are Democrats spreading that lie about you, and do they expect Wisconsin voters to believe it?
Well, I think unfortunately they're hoping they do. That's one of a multitude of misstatements out there all the time. It's one that legally can't happen. It's against the Constitution. No governor can give himself or herself in Wisconsin a pay raise because you can't initiate something that happens until the next term of office. So obviously it's a mistruth out there. But I think when you see so many of our opponents can't debate the issue on the facts, they're going to try to turn to misstatements and other ways of really abusing the system. It's why they're pushing the recalls. They didn't win last year. They don't want to wait till the next election like most folks do. This is not something organic. Last November, literally November 2nd of 2010, the first recall Scott Walker website started. So you see these sorts of tactics being used. And in the end, I think voters in Wisconsin are sick of it. They're ready to move on. They don't like all the protests and the tax and everything else that goes on with it. They want our state to go forward. And we've got a plan to help bring the people of the state together, not just amongst party, but in the larger context, public and private, local and state, coming together to help put our state back to work.
Are unions behind that fallacious pay raise charge?
Oh, I think you see some of that, a combination of the state Democrats and a handful of unions who push that and a number of other bogus claims out there.
All right, you campaigned on a promise to create 250,000 new jobs during your first term. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reports only 29,000 jobs have been created. How do you improve that over the next couple of years?
Well, we've had a tremendous shift in the last 3 years before I took office, 2007 to 2010, under my predecessor and the Democrats in charge of the legislature. Wisconsin lost 150,000 jobs. In the first 6 months, we gained almost 40,000. We've had our challenges in August and in September and October, but that's in large part because of the national and global economy. We still have a net increase of jobs in 2011. But we need to accelerate that. But one of the key things to remember, and I constantly have to remind some of the more vocal Democrat opponents out there, is that the government does not create jobs. The government does not create jobs, people do. And so what we're going to do, what we started out doing this year right off the bat in January, was create a better business environment. It's had an impact. We went from a year ago where 10% of our job creators thought we were heading in the right direction, to this year 88% say we're in the right direction. And they say on top of that, the majority of them say they're going to add more jobs in the next 12 months. We need to make it easier for job creators, particularly small businesses, because that's our bread and butter, If they feel better about where the economy is going, where the state is, that'll help put more people to work. And then we'll help the people, not me, but the people of Wisconsin, create 250,000 new jobs by 2015.
How do you encourage businesses to create more jobs in Wisconsin?
Yeah, a couple of things. Lowering the burden that's been in place before. The tax burden we lowered for job creators and individuals, the regulatory burden, cutting through the red tape, the litigation burden, major tort reform. All those things are costs that people factor, not only in terms of coming to Wisconsin, but what businesses do that are here that grow. If you're a small business and you want to add 5 more employees, oftentimes you're going to say, but what other costs are coming up in the next year or two? And if people aren't confident that they can manage those costs, they're not going to add jobs. So we try to create a better environment to create jobs in Wisconsin.
Of course, when Obamacare kicks in, that's going to scare more people.
Well, and that's one of those issues. I mean, people ask, what would I do at the federal level? It's real simple. Cut the tax burden. If you do what Reagan did a generation ago, I should say, 3 decades ago, in August of 1981, not too many moons ago, President Reagan cut the marginal tax rate by 25%. That brought about the largest peacetime economic boom in American history. We can do the same thing. On top of that, the regulatory climate in this country is too high. It's why we've tried to change the state, but places like the EPA and the Department of Labor need to have streamlined, more reasonable expectations. But you hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest challenges I hear from employers is their fear of the unknown of what will happen when the president's health care mandate is fully invoked. We need to fight that. It's why on the first day I was in office, I authorized our Attorney General to join that lawsuit. We need to fight it politically as well as legally, and we ultimately need to prevail because it will help us create more jobs when there's certainty that the federal mandate's not intact.
There are some who argue that collective bargaining by public employees pits those workers against the citizens who pay their taxes with their salaries.
It's a vicious circle, and it's not just conservative thought. Franklin Delano Roosevelt raised those same concerns. LaGuardia in New York. The bottom line, it's a vicious cycle of the taxpayers' money being used to pay for legitimate wages and benefits that public employees have earned, good public servants out there. But on top of that, a portion of that then goes to pay union dues, which then is used not only for collective bargaining, but for political activities that then go to elect candidates who promise, many times in secret, who promise to add more employees, more benefits, more government spending. It is a vicious cycle where there's no one standing up and being an advocate for the taxpayers. I respect the hard work that the people of my state put in to earn a living, to put food on the table, and in part to pay taxes, to operate the legitimate things that we do in government. I think for me to be able to be in a position where I say I respect that so much so, I'm going to put government in a position where the way we operate is parallel to where the middle class taxpayers in my state operate. That's exactly what we're looking to do. In fact, my brother's a good example. He pays almost a little over $800 a month for his health insurance and a little bit he can set aside for his 401k. He is a typical middle class family. He's a banquet manager at a hotel. He works part-time as a bartender. His wife works at a department store. They have 2 beautiful kids. They embody the middle class of Wisconsin. He points to what we've done through our reforms and said, I'd love a deal like that. Your employees today are still paying a fraction of what guys like my brother David are paying in the private sector. And whether it's someone like him or someone working at a manufacturing plant or a nurse working at a hospital, what we're saying is we respect the hard work that they do, and we're saying it's only reasonable that when they work hard to pay the bills that include our taxes, government should be at the same standard.
What do you envision happening over the next couple of years under your administration in Wisconsin?
Well, our hope is really we honestly and directly tackle the major crises we have, 3 of them: economic, fiscal, and a crisis of confidence in government. The economic side, we make it easier for private employers, the private sector in our state, to create those 250,000 jobs by creating a better environment, not by more government, but creating a better environment. We truly balance the budget in a way that helps both our state and our local governments. But third, most importantly, it's not enough to just balance the budget through cuts. In the areas where we do have a role, when it is legitimate for government to have a role in society, we need to do it well. Too many times, too many politicians, including some Republicans, just focus on the cuts. What we want to do is make things work better. And that's what I love telling the story of our reforms. We enable school districts and local governments, as well as our state, to ultimately make hiring decisions based on merit, to pay based on performance. That means in the end, our best and our brightest are going to be in our classrooms and our government positions all across our state. That will make our government work better.
Finally, the Green Bay Packers, undefeated.
All the way through Indianapolis. I told Mitch Daniels today, I already got my time carved out to go to Indianapolis for the Super Bowl. The great thing I love about the Green Bay Packers, and particularly Aaron Rodgers, is they don't overlook the next game. They're not cocky. They're not full of themselves. They're just a top-notch quality team, and I think they're really, in many ways, very reflective of the good people in the state of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, thank you so much, sir.
Great to be with you.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.